Here's the cruelest twist. The gangster was ready to burn a city for her, and she was one phone call away from destroying him. Lily loved Vincent, but the police offered her a clean escape if she betrayed him. Meanwhile, Vincent, this feared man who could crush loan sharks and rival crews, couldn't beat the one enemy he never controlled: the truth catching up to his life. That is what makes this story brutal. Not the guns, not the threats, but the fact that both of them had to choose between love and survival, and either choice would feel like betrayal.
For a man like Vincent Russo, fear was a concept, not a feeling. Yet the evening he laid eyes on the florist, Lily Morgan, a fault line fractured his composure. She was an anomaly in his meticulously ordered existence. Her small floral shop was her sanctuary, a fragile barricade against a damaged past. The moment they connected across the room, two fractured souls recognized their own reflection, revealing a fatal vulnerability to his enemies. This is a chronicle of a connection born from pain, of a predator's armor beginning to crack, and the lethal cost of intimacy in a violent world. A brief observation for our record. The story's resonance will be gauged through endorsements and localized commentary. The setting is a Saturday evening at Manhattan's opulent Metropolitan Club. Lily Morgan moves like a specter through the affair, clinging to the periphery. A wineglass serves as her only shield, her focus locked on her closest friend, Sophie, who shines as the evening's radiant core. To witness Sophie's authentic joy was to feel the void inside Lily deepen 100-fold. As Sophie's new groom, Michael guided her to the dance floor, the familiar specter of sorrow coiled around Lily's heart. This wasn't envy. It was the profound weight of an outsider looking in. Among these effortlessly confident people, her own sense of being fractured felt like a shroud. Her fingers began their private rite, whirring the cuff of her sleeve to conceal the raised scar on her left wrist. The cartography of a past terror, a trigger in perpetual readiness. She issued a silent command to herself, "Just seem normal." Sophie, effervescent with champagne and happiness, drifted toward her. Her intuition was a finely tuned instrument, and she instantly saw the nervous habit with the sleeve. What is the meaning of this? Lily feigned ignorance, a well-rehearsed defense. Sophie called this her great escape, her tendency to dissolve into the background. She looped her arm through Lily's, a gentle but insistent gesture. "Dancing isn't my forte." "Neither is being a recluse," Sophie replied softly, "but you persist in the attempt." A faint smile graced Lily's features. "This is your wedding. I am content just to see you happy." Sophie's face softened as the unspoken image of a hospital room from 3 years prior materialized between them. "I understand that crowds are a trial for you. I know this can feel like you are sinking, but give me your word. Anything. Promise me you will find one good thing tonight. A conversation with a stranger, a single dance. One moment where you are not charting your paths of retreat." The words were a direct strike against her paranoia. "You are deserving of good things, Lily, even if you cannot believe it." Before a response could form, Sophie was drawn back to her husband, leaving Lily unmoored once more. The familiar, toxic thought surfaced. Every beautiful moment is only a prelude to disaster, a lesson her trauma had branded onto her soul. She was turning to leave when she felt it, that animal instinct of being watched, setting every internal alarm to a scream. Hypervigilance was her baseline, but this was different. This was predatory. The acute paranoia from her past had subsided after 2 years of therapy, yet this sensation was undeniable. A swift survey of the room revealed him. He was positioned by the bar, a whiskey in his hand, his gaze fixed on her without apology. Most people avert their eyes when caught. He did not. His stare was a clear assertion of power. He was tall, easily over 6 feet, with dark hair and a presence more intense than conventionally handsome. He possessed a defined jawline, a strong nose, and eyes she could not resolve from this distance. His tailored black suit spoke of significant wealth, but it was not his appearance that made her heart race. It was the quality of his stare. It held no pity, no social unease, not even desire. It was the cold, analytical focus of a man disassembling something to understand its mechanics. Protocol dictated she look away to withdraw. Instead, in a startling act of defiance, she met his gaze. The edge of his mouth lifted in what seemed like a gesture of approval. Then he began moving toward her, his trajectory direct and inexorable. Panic gripped her. Her knuckles went white around the stem of her glass. "You are the friend of Sophie." His voice was a low baritone, deeper than she anticipated. "The florist?" She was visibly unsettled. "How did you know?" "Sophie spoke of you all week. She said her best friend was overseeing the floral design personally, as no one else could be trusted with the roses." This was a man who had done his research. He gestured to a nearby arrangement of cream roses and white peonies. "I presume this is your creation." "It is." The words emerged more calmly than she felt. "I own a shop in Brooklyn called Petals and Thorns." "Vincent," he stated, extending his hand. "I am Michael's cousin, the one who is not discussed at family functions." The disarming humor was effective. An authentic smile appeared as they shook hands. His touch was warm, firm, and brief. "Are you really so troublesome?" "That is a matter of perspective." A strange emotion crossed his features. "But I shall make an effort to be civil tonight, on my honor." "Were you a Boy Scout?" "Absolutely not." His directness made her laugh, and a fraction of her tension dissolved. His candor was a relief. "What is it that you do, Vincent, when you are not occupying the role of the family outcast?" "Import-export." The response was too fluid, too practiced. "Olive oil, wine, and other such goods." The description was mundane, but it did not align with the man. It was a disguise. Her own trauma had made her an expert at detecting the fissures in a performance. She had been maintaining one for years. The fabrication lingered in the space between them, but she could discern the difference between a need for privacy and an intent to mislead. It was conceivable he had his own wounds to conceal. "That sounds fascinating," she replied, adhering to the social convention. His lips curved in recognition. "You are a remarkably poor liar." "I beg your pardon?" "The import-export trade is tedious." He was simply violating the rules of conversation, establishing an intimacy she had not agreed to. "You were being polite." He lifted his glass, his eyes holding hers over the rim. "I appreciate the gesture, but pretense is not required with me." The declaration was designed to frame him as unique. A warmth rose in her neck. "I was not." "You were. It is a common reaction. Most people are." He set his glass down. "May I share what I find fascinating?" "What is it?" "How a person with such a deep-seated aversion to crowds could produce something this exquisite for a friend." He indicated the flowers. "That necessitates either love or madness." "It is a clear mix of the two," she confessed. "Sophie wanted April roses. I acquired them from 3 suppliers and watched them for 2 weeks. I had very little sleep, but the objective was met." He was certain she would succeed. His gaze remained steady, calculating, making her feel like a specimen being studied. He then posed the one question that utterly destroyed her composure. When was the last time someone extended that level of devotion to you? The question struck her with physical force. Her throat constricted. The answer was never. Not outside a clinical setting where she was a patient to be managed, a problem to be solved. But she could not tell him that, could not articulate how she had learned to make herself small so as not to be a burden. She had to leave. Her subtle shift to withdraw was a desperate maneuver to escape his penetrating gaze. Sophie's name was her pretext, a defense he dissected with clinical precision. She is by the dessert bar. Your brief absence will not be noted, he observed. You are scanning the room. A conditioned behavior, he remarked, his expression darkening. My profession requires a constant threat analysis of all factors. Here, at a wedding, a threat is an ever-present possibility. Vincent's tone was level, but Lily perceived the cold diagnosis beneath his logic. She perceived in him a reflection of her own fractured state, a life lived in anticipation of catastrophe. For tonight, however, I am merely Michael's cousin, tasked with asking you to dance. Her heart faltered. That is not an activity I engage in, nor do I. Your justification? Sophie's judgment was sound. You have earned a single moment of reprieve this evening. His hand extended, an offering, not a command. Perhaps I have as well. Lily's gaze fell to his hand, registering the calloused knuckles that belied his fabricated career. She contrasted his utter stillness with her own trembling. Sophie's directive, the notion of a brief sanctuary, abruptly felt possible. She considered the marks concealed by her lavender silk and wondered what injuries his suit was hiding. One dance, the words escaped her. Then I must disappear. Understood. His hold was a firm, warm anchor. As he guided her into the slow, circling currents of the dance floor, he positioned them with expert grace, one hand at her waist, and began to lead. The man was a liar. His skill on the floor was profound. You misrepresent your abilities, Lily noted, turning his own assessment back on him. A low vibration in his chest was his reply, a laugh held in check. I have had cause to learn. They moved without words as Lily searched her memory, trying to pinpoint the exact moment her body had learned to recoil from human touch. So his hand rests on her waist, more for guidance than for control. The hold is loose, an unspoken permission to flee, yet she remains. Vincent inclines his head, his voice a low resonance. May I ask you something? Tell me if I overstep. He has seen her anxious tick with the sleeves. His thumb barely grazes her wrist as he delivers the blow. You were harmed. It was not a question, you understand, but a statement of fact. Lily's frame stiffens, but without breaking rhythm, Vincent continues the dance, containing her. She finally yields, conceding that it was true. His very presence seemed to compel honesty, as if a lie could not physically form in the air around him. He spoke of justice, but his tone was glacial. It wasn't an inquiry, but a judgment. Lily felt the steel beneath his words, an unspoken threat that forced her to truly see him. His face was a mask of control, but his eyes were voids, sparking a profound dread. She confessed the verdict. The man was imprisoned behind bars. His sole reply, acceptable, was punctuated by a faint pressure at her waist. They danced the rest in silence before he left with a bow that held no awkwardness, only a chilling precision. My thanks for the dance, Lily Morgan. Thank you for... His words drifted into the space between them. For what? For perceiving her soul? For not asking the question she could never voice? For making her feel complete for one stolen moment? A true smile touched Vincent's lips, momentarily dissolving the menace. "For being a terrible liar," she replied. "You are welcome." He then receded into the crowd, leaving Lily's heart pounding and the memory of his touch burning her skin. An hour later, she found Sophie, drunk on bliss and wine, clinging to Michael as if he might evaporate. "There you are!" Sophie pulled Lily close. "I saw you with him. Who was he?" "He was electric. Tell me you got his number. You have to tell me you did." "Michael's cousin," Lily answered, her voice still unsteady. "Vincent." A silent, secret dialogue then passed between Michael and Sophie, one Lily could not decipher. Michael's smile was fixed, but his eyes were strained. Vincent was here. He scanned the room. I never saw him. "He said he was your cousin." "He is. It's simply—" Michael glanced again at Sophie. "Vincent doesn't participate in family affairs. We parted ways long ago." "Why?" "Different paths," Michael stated, his voice a fortress. "Different choices. I wouldn't—" "Listen, he isn't a bad person, but he is complicated. It would be best if you forgot you ever met him." But Lily could not. Not the way his eyes had measured her, like he was fitting a lost piece into a puzzle. Not the coldness in his voice when he inquired about justice. Not the sensation of being truly seen for the first time in an eternity. She returned to her flat, shot the deadbolt twice instead of her usual 3, and stared at the ceiling. Different paths, different choices. What kind of warning was that? The quiet of the shop on Monday was a flawless reflection of Lily's spirit. A long night spent on a funeral arrangement had left her utterly depleted. The petals of Sophie's wedding roses were already browning as Lily broke them down for compost. The shop's bell chimed. "Be right with you," Lily called, not bothering to look up. "Just give me a moment to—" "There is no urgency." Her head snapped up. It was Vincent, a dark silhouette framed in the doorway of her shop, stark against the soft hues of the flowers. He wore jeans and a quality sweater and held 2 paper coffee cups. "Coffee," he offered, raising one. "I was uncertain of your preference, so I bought it black with cream and sugar on the side. The barista found me strange, but I concluded it was the optimal way to manage the risk." Lily remained rooted to the spot, frozen. Her response was a total system failure, triggered by pure suspicion. "Why are you here?" was not a question, but a challenge, a blaring alarm that her perimeter had been breached. Vincent's offering of coffee was a Trojan horse, an attempt to bypass her defenses with a veneer of normalcy. He placed the cups down with unnerving precision, a part of his calculated strategy. His reason? He called her a significant data point, transforming a gesture of interest into a cold, logical operation. It was simply how his mind functioned. He saw her staring, acknowledged his own unsettling pursuit, but framed it as a required step to understand her. So he stood there, this disquieting man, with a simple peace offering. For Lily, even accepting the coffee was a monumental surrender, her hands moving only to conceal their trembling. The coffee was from a pricey local shop, a clear signal this was a premeditated investment. Her protest, "This is not normal," was a plea to return to the predictable world she had constructed. His counter, "I would like to learn," inverted the dynamic. He wasn't trying to conquer her, he was attempting to decode her. And therein lay her deepest conflict. She had been conditioned to believe that kindness was always a prelude to a terrible price. "Listen." The single word cut through the shop's quiet. Vincent leaned against the counter, a casual pose that looked completely staged. I know this is unusual. My directness is a blunt instrument, and I am certain it's activating every alarm you possess. But I am unskilled at social games, and I suspect you are as well. Therefore, I will be direct. Direct about what? I have been unable to think of anything but you since Saturday. Your smile during Sophie's dance, the way you pull at your sleeves, how you danced with me despite your terror, his intense gaze locked with hers. I do not know what this is. It could be nothing, it could be everything, but I intend to find out. And I believe you do too. Lily's fingers tightened, nearly shattering her ceramic mug. Yeah, I am not seeking a relationship. Nor am I. Then what is the objective? Coffee, conversation. We observe the outcome. Vincent offered a minute shrug. No pressure, no objective. Just two people who are poor liars getting acquainted. It was illogical. He was illogical. The situation was madness, yet Lily felt her own head betray her with a nod. All right, she breathed. Coffee. A smile broke across Vincent's face, transforming his severe features into something else entirely. Yes, just coffee. The best intelligence I have acquired all week. He lifted his cup in a small toast to bad liars and the possibility of a new course. Lily tapped her cup to his, trying to silence the thoughts of sharp objects and misfortune. She chose to disregard how Vincent was methodically assessing the shop's exits and lines of sight, just as he had at the reception. It was simpler than reconciling how the coffee bearer was the same man with hands calloused by a life he never discussed. The rain began, and he remained for 3 hours. His visits became a quiet ritual, a form of conditioning she could not resist. On Tuesday, he brought pastries from a bakery she had mentioned once. On Wednesday, he arrived empty-handed but assisted with her work, moving with a disquieting competence for a novice. On Thursday, he appeared with more coffee and a well-worn book on floral illustration, acknowledging her passion. By Friday morning, she finally mustered the will to object, even as her traitorous hands accepted the cup he offered. This is going to generate gossip, she said. Irrelevant, he countered. Turning away, Vincent examined an orchid. These are new. They arrived yesterday, she affirmed. A gift between lovers, a memento of their first encounter. Lily sipped the coffee, prepared exactly as she liked it, a detail he had quietly noted on Tuesday. The man's observational abilities were extraordinary. Don't you have more important things to do than linger in a flower shop all week? Not at present, no. Vincent turned, leaning against the window. The light caught his face, shifting his brown eyes to bronze. Business is quiet. In the import-export trade? Correct. That is a lie. And your capacity to perceive it is flawless. His expression shifted, a blend of amusement and something approaching respect. Most people lack that ability. Lily set down her cup, her crossed arms a shield. 5 days of his campaign had given her the courage to challenge him. What is it you truly do? I have told you, primarily Mediterranean goods. Vincent. A heavy silence descended on the shop, broken only by a passing car. A muscle ticked in his jaw as he wrestled with an internal conflict. My family maintains business interests in this city, he stated, his words meticulously chosen. Logistics, transport, some real estate. I assist in the management of those interests. That is not the entire truth. It is not. His gaze was unwavering, yielding nothing. But it is all I can offer you now. If that is insufficient, tell me to go, and I will. It was an explicit warning, a clearly marked exit. She should have taken it. After 3 years, behind barricades, Vincent had found the first fissure in 5 days. "Acceptable," she heard her own voice say. "You may stay. For now." She clutched her coffee cup, an anchor in the storm. "But I will be keeping a record of your vague responses." Vincent's posture eased, his gamble having succeeded. "Fair enough." He moved nearer. "May I ask you something?" "That depends on the question." "The scars on your wrists. You said another person was responsible." Vincent's entire demeanor shifted, his clinical tone softening. "You omitted who was responsible, the reason, and the aftermath." Her fingers flew to her sleeve, a pure reflex. "That is a great deal of questions. You are not required to answer. I am simply—" He stopped, his expression grave. "I need to understand the architecture of your pain, your triggers." "So I am merely a variable to you?" "Poor phrasing. My objective—" He ran a hand through his hair, his composure fracturing. "My objective is to not be the fool who causes you harm through ignorance." Lily watched this agent of chaos dismantle her carefully ordered system. Yet his discomfort felt genuine, cracking his stoic facade. "His name was David," she said, her voice strained. "We were together for 8 months. Initially, he was the very image of perfection. Charming, devoted to me, everything I believed I desired." The admission was painful, but she continued. Then the madness surfaced, absolute possession, and insane jealousy. Every text message required a justification. He had to sanction my clothing. My entire existence required his permission. The air in the room went still as stone, Vincent's grip on the counter draining all color from his knuckles. She began, her voice a fragile thread, speaking of an attempt to leave him. A deep breath, and then the fallout. His reaction, she said, was terrible. He forced his way into her apartment. He carried a blade. The moments that followed were a fractured nightmare, a blur of terror she couldn't piece together. Her next clear thought was in a hospital, her wrists wrapped in white gauze, with Sophie watching over her. Vincent's voice was a ghost of a sound. "Was it you?" he asked, his meaning hanging in the silence. "The cuts?" "No," she said, forcing her gaze to meet his. "He did it. He arranged it all to look like I took my own life." The end of the story was cold and clinical. Police found him drunk in his vehicle, now serving 12 years for his attempt on her life, among other things. An immense silence filled the space between them, thick and suffocating. When Vincent's voice finally cut through it, the warmth was gone, replaced by the same coldness she remembered from the wedding. 12 years, he stated, is not nearly enough. "I know," Lily whispered back him, "but it's the sentence the court gave. When he is released, he will not be a concern for me again." She spoke with a strange finality. "I've ensured it." An old nervous gesture, her hand touching her sleeve. "A restraining order, a different apartment, a new phone number. He doesn't know where to find me." "Good." Some of the tension left Vincent's hands. "That is a good outcome." But the ugly truth of her past lingered in the air, and Lily braced herself for the pity she was sure would come next. She was certain he would vanish after hearing a tale so broken. But he only studied her, as if she were a complex problem he was determined to understand. "Thank you," he said at last, the words heavy with sincerity, "for telling me." "You wanted to know," she replied simply. "I did," he acknowledged, "and you are not obligated to share." Vincent raised his coffee cup. "If it means anything," he began, "I believe you are remarkably strong." "I'm not," she deflected. "You are," he insisted. You endured an absolute horror and put your life back together. You opened a business. You held on to your closest friend. You figured out how to exist again. His eyes locked on hers. That requires a courage most people can't even comprehend. She turned away, a sudden burn behind her eyes. Every night, I still check the locks 3 times. As do I. You do? The surprise in her voice was clear. An old routine, Vincent said, his tone shifting to something lighter. Different reasons, I'm sure, but the same ritual. We all have our burdens. What are yours? She asked. My burdens. You know mine. It feels like a fair exchange. A smile touched Vincent's lips but didn't reach his eyes. I have profound issues with trust. I operate on the assumption that everyone has a hidden motive. I get maybe 4 hours of sleep a night. He paused. And my instinct is to solve problems with either wealth or violence, often when it's the wrong approach. That's a strangely precise confession, she noted. It is. Vincent drained his coffee, crushing the paper cup in his hand. But you were already keeping a tally of my deflections. She had to grant him that. They were a matched set of guarded secrets, a strange equilibrium of shadows. The moment was broken by a new customer. As Lily attended to them, Vincent simply faded into the background. When she turned around 20 minutes later, he was gone. He had scribbled a note on the back of a receipt, the script flawless. Dinner tomorrow? Below it, a challenge, only if you possess a high tolerance for risk. It was signed with a single letter, V. Lily fought a smile as she slipped the note into her pocket. He brought her to an unmarked Italian restaurant, a tiny place that took no reservations from the public. But inside, Vincent was greeted like a returning son, the staff immediately showing them to a quiet corner. This place feels exclusive, Lily observed as he held her chair. Do you have ties to half the city? Just to the people who are important, Vincent replied smoothly. Besides, the owner's grandmother crafts the finest carbonara in the world. It's a scientific fact. I'm not even certain I care for carbonara, she teased. You will. The confidence in his voice was absolute, and he was not wrong. When the dish arrived 40 minutes later, it was divine. A small sound of pure contentment escaped Lily's lips. Vincent merely observed her, a smug look on his face. I was correct. All right, you were correct, she conceded, taking another forkful. This is phenomenal. Rose has prepared it that way for 60 years, he said. One does not argue with perfection. They ate the rest of their meal in a peaceful silence, the noise of the busy room seeming a universe away. May I ask you something? Lily paused, dabbing her lips with a napkin. After her own confession, it seemed like a fair trade. Michael mentioned you two weren't close, that you took separate paths. Her tone wasn't accusatory, just deeply curious. What did that mean? A muscle in Vincent's jaw tightened for an instant before his expression went smooth. Michael is a good man, he said. He's in finance, has a lovely wife, a home. He is entirely normal, completely respectable. And you are not normal, no, respectable. A strange, humorless smirk played on Vincent's lips. That is entirely dependent on who you ask. I am asking. In that case, no, not in the slightest. He took a measured sip of wine. The business my family is in, it isn't traded on any stock exchange. We operate with discretion, and we resolve issues that others are unwilling to confront. Lily felt her pulse quicken. What sort of issues? The kind that shouldn't be discussed over a meal this excellent, Vincent said, setting his glass down. I apologize. I realize that is not a true answer. It's an answer, she countered, just not the one I was hoping for. Would knowing more alter this? He made a gesture between them, at the atmosphere they'd created. Lily considered it. The woman she used to be would have already been gone. But as she looked at Vincent, she understood she was already too far involved to ever walk away cleanly. I don't have enough information to say, she conceded. Perhaps. Fair enough, Vincent said, leaning back to watch her. But I want you to know, my intention is to keep you entirely separate from it all. My work, the conflict. I want this part of my life to be normal. Is that truly possible? To keep them apart? I am going to make it my mission. The muscle in his jaw worked again. You have been wounded enough, Lily. I will not be another source of pain. The way he said it wasn't a comfort. It was a terrifying vow, the kind a person makes when they understand the full extent of the destruction they can cause. And just like that, Vincent deftly steered them into safer waters. He summoned a waiter, ordered dessert for them both, and then asked, Tell me about your boutique. How long has it been open? Lily allowed the change of topic, a mix of relief and frustration swirling inside her. They fell into talk of business, suppliers, difficult customers, and a landlord from hell. Vincent's questions were sharp. He recalled details from their first conversation, and he made her laugh with tales of his friend Rose's grandmother intimidating famous food critics. Yet beneath the easy conversation, Lily felt the immense gravity of all that was left unsaid, the danger he embodied, and the terrifying truth that she was falling for a man who was still a complete enigma. The tiramisu was exquisite, a perfect airy confection. Lily finished every last bite, trying to ignore the sense of foreboding that was growing within her. The following 3 weeks became a whirlwind of brief encounters and carefully rationed truths. Vincent would appear at her shop most mornings, bearing coffee and sometimes groceries or books as a thin pretense to see her. He took her to quiet, unnamed bars, deserted parks, and for a late-night film in Queens. She discovered Vincent spoke fluent Italian and passable Greek, that he'd never attended university but consumed books voraciously, and that a wicked scar marked his left shoulder from some unspoken violence. She learned he was generous with money but secretive about his history. Fiercely protective, possessed a grim wit, and that his first kiss beneath a Brooklyn street lamp left her breathless. She registered the voids he left, absences stretching for hours, sometimes days, announced by 2 stark words. Business. Later. He always returned, as promised, but he carried the shadows back with him, a new tension in his shoulders, a predator's gaze sweeping every room for threats unseen, and hushed calls taken out in the cold, his jaw a line of granite. She never questioned it. Vincent had drawn hard borders around his world, and in turn, Lily fortified her own, sealing away parts of her soul even from his gaze. This union built on unspoken truths should have been a catastrophe. And yet this fragile reality felt more authentic than any part of her life before him. There's a man, Sophie's voice sliced through her thoughts. Across a table over bitter coffee that was a pale imitation of Vincent's, Sophie's stare had been dissecting her for 20 minutes. Why would you think that? Lily's attempt at innocence was a paper-thin defense. Your phone, your face, that expression. What expression? The one that says you're falling into something beautiful and terrifying. Sophie leaned closer, drawn to the conflict. You have to tell me. Who is he? Lily's world went still. Her entire friendship with Sophie was founded on absolute transparency, a connection forged in their sophomore year over terrible dining hall meals and even worse relationships. But Vincent felt different. He was a secret she felt compelled to guard, as if speaking his name aloud might shatter the fragile reality they were building. It is new, she offered finally. I am not prepared to define it yet. Is his name Vincent? Lily's head jerked up. How could you possibly? Michael let it slip that he'd inquired about you. You two danced together at the wedding, and the expression on your face just now confirmed it all. Sophie was grinning from ear to ear. I knew it. I observed how he was watching you that night. The situation is extremely complicated. The meaningful ones always are, Sophie replied, her smile dimming slightly. But Lil, I must ask, are you being careful? Michael implied that Vincent is tied up in some very heavy business. What kind of heavy business? He was vague, Sophie admitted, only saying that Vincent isn't a conventional person, that his family has a certain reputation? Sophie's hand found Lily's across the table. I have faith in you. I just need to hear that you're being cautious. Lily's mind flashed through a catalog of contradictions. Vincent's gentle touch and his predator's gaze, his absurd story about olive oil, and the glacial tone of his voice when he'd asked if her ex, David, had ever answered for his crimes. She recalled his habit of mapping the exits in every room, his hushed calls, and his sudden disappearances into the night. I'm being careful, she vowed, a promise made of half-truths. The words were a fragile shield. I can handle this. And though her friend replied, I know, the warning echoed long after their conversation drifted to safer shores. Serious dealings, a reputation, what did it mean? Alone in the darkness, illuminated by her screen's cold light, Lily finally typed the name she feared. Vincent Russo. The search yielded only shadows, naming him a consultant in dry corporate filings. One photograph from 5 years past surfaced. Vincent, bored in a tuxedo beside a philanthropist named Antonio Russo. No scandal, no dirt. But the silence, the utter absence of an online presence, was its own kind of scream. He was a ghost. As she stared into that void, her phone lit up with his name. Are you awake? Every instinct screamed no, but her fingers betrayed her, typing, yes. Is something wrong? His reply was a crack in his composure. May I come see you? It's almost midnight. I know, I have to see you, please. That single word, please, sent a tremor through her. Vincent never asked, he declared. This was desperation. Come to my apartment, she texted. He arrived 20 minutes later, a man completely undone. His hair was chaos, his knuckles were bloodied, and a storm in his eyes made her recoil. He saw it and faltered. My apologies, this was a mistake. But she cut him off. What happened? She took his broken hand, pulling him from the threshold and sealing the door on the night. Your hand, Vincent? She asked. A business discussion, he deflected, a fractured smile playing on his lips. The other fellow looks worse. Not funny. I know. He sank onto her couch, a puppet with its strings cut. I apologize. I don't handle this well. Handle what? Being seen when I'm broken. He stared at his knuckles. Usually I handle things, then bring coffee, pretending it's just another day. Lily returned with the first aid kit, taking his hand gently. This will sting. He barely flinched. As Lily cleaned his wounds, she walled off the questions of their origin. He watched her, his breathing steadying with each careful motion. Then came the classic defense, cloaking his secrecy in the guise of her protection. "I won't let you be endangered," he vowed. "Do you understand?" She nodded numbly, though her expression screamed a silent question. "What am I to you?" She needed to be more than a refuge from his storms. She had to be a part of his world. He answered her unspoken plea, placing her at the center of his broken universe. She was, he claimed, the only truth in a life of obligation. His other world was a cage of duty. When she pressed for details, a weighted silence fell between them. "My family," he began. "We are the balanced lily. We solve problems when the system fails." "It's not legal, it is dangerous, and it has been for 3 generations." A cold, perfect terror shot through her veins. She gave the monster a name. "Organized crime." He called it logistics, dispute resolution. The fight? A partner renegotiated terms, a grave error. His face became a mask of stone, revealing a chilling emptiness inside. I corrected the misunderstanding. "Any sane person would have fled. But Lily..." Lily searched for the man who had held her with such tenderness, a desperate shield against this cold, brutal reality. Why now? Her voice was a thread of sound. This, he explained, was the foundation they had to build on or walk away from. His hand covered hers, his thumb a soothing anchor in the storm of his words. "I'm developing feelings for you," he confessed, "and you deserve the whole truth before you feel the same." It struck her like a wave. The two Vincents wouldn't reconcile in her mind. "My life is lethal," he warned. "To be with me is to be in its shadow. I will try to protect you." "I'll be your shield," he offered, his voice rough with the truth. "But even shields can break." The choice was hers: disappear from his life forever, or step into the darkness with him. Her eyes felt in their joined hands. His, scarred by his world. Hers, still untouched. Every warning screamed at her to flee, yet it was his quiet ruin that held her captive. "I'm so scared," she confessed in a whisper. "You should be," he agreed, "but I won't leave." Relief and terror fought for dominance on her face. "I'll stay," she resolved, finding strength. "For now. If it's too much, I'll tell you. Deal?" "Deal." The embrace that followed was a release, a tremor of gratitude shaking through him as she held on just as tightly. "Thank you," he murmured, the words a mantra. And just like that, their world was irrevocably altered. Outside, the city murmured its nightly song. Lily locked her door and slid into bed, her hand finding his even in sleep. But morning brought a stranger. His voice on the phone was ice. "I don't care why. A 30% shortage means a thief or an idiot. Fix it." He paused. "No, I want names before tonight. Verify them. If this blows up, it's on you, not me." The call ended. He saw her, and the mask fell into place. "Good morning." The killer vanished, replaced by her lover. "I hoped you'd sleep in." "No luck," she said, trying to move through the chilling air. That sounded intense. "Business," he whispered, his kiss a wall between his lives. "Don't you worry." But she did. To know was one thing. To hear the violence in his voice was another. "Wait." His touch was soft, but his hold was steel, turning her to him. "I know that was a lot. Is your work always so hostile? When rules are broken?" A muscle jumped in his jaw. "I prefer to talk. Some people only respond to violence." She pictured his bruised hands. And yesterday? That, he said, his eyes far away, was a behavioral adjustment. My world has a code, Lily. Cross a line and you are corrected. It's not personal, it's order. That seems personal to the one being corrected, she murmured. Perhaps. He let her go. The alternative is chaos, a world with no accountability. We create structure. Her mind flashed to her attacker, his pathetic 12-year sentence. She saw the sick parallel. Vincent's world was just more honest in its savagery. I have a meeting, he said softly. An appointment at noon. I can't move. The price of her decision lingered in the empty apartment. Payment was demanded 3 days later, on a Thursday. As she locked her flower shop, 2 men who seemed carved from stone appeared in the doorway. The leader's leather jacket creaked as he offered a smile that was all ice. "We're closed," Lily stated, her fingers creeping toward her phone. "I reopen at 9. "We're not buying flowers." The first man advanced as the second blocked her only way out. "We need to talk about Vincent Russo." A silent scream echoed in her skull. She kept her face a mask, her phone a useless talisman. "I don't know that name." The lie was pathetic. The second man, his face split by a scar, showed her his phone. It was a picture of her with Vincent from that very morning. "Cute," the scarred one grunted. Dread washed through her, cold and heavy. "What do you want?" "Just a talk." The leader leaned on her counter, casual and menacing. "Vincent's been interfering with our boss's work. We thought you might convince him to be reasonable." "I told you, I don't—" "Enough!" His voice cracked like a whip. "We've watched you for 2 weeks. We know your routine. We know where you live. We know all about you, Lily Morgan." Hearing her full name was a violation, a cold ghost of her stalker, David. But those were no lone predators. They were corporate monsters. "He doesn't listen to me," she lied, her voice holding firm. "And you can't scare me." "This isn't a threat," the man said, his tone chillingly polite. "It's a message. Tell Vincent to leave our deliveries alone. Tell him to forget about his plans for Queens. Modely. Advise him to mind his own affairs." Her silence hung in the air as the man named Scar reached inside his jacket. Lily recoiled, her mind screaming, "Gun!" But what he produced was a manila folder dropped onto the counter with a soft finality. "This is the architecture of you. Medical files from 3 years past, the layout of your home, and a full workup on your friends, Sophie and Michael." Scar's tone was glacial. "We prefer discretion, Lily, but if Vincent remains a complication, we liquidate his assets. You will be first." The file lay there, an obituary written in advance. They had exhumed the deepest traumas of her past and fashioned them into chains. David, the institution, every ghost she had ever battled was now a weapon aimed at her. Leave. The word was torn from a part of her she thought had been buried forever. "Get out of my shop." "Relax, sweetheart, we're only the delivery service. I said to get out." She snatched the file and hurled it at their faces. Pages erupted, a confetti of her violated privacy. "You don't get to stand here and threaten me. I am not your pawn. Go now, or I'm calling the police." The one in leather merely scoffed. "The law? You think they're your allies? They're on his payroll or paid to be blind." He raised his hands in a mocking surrender. "Our business is concluded. The message is sent. Your move." They walked out, the cheerful bell on the door sounding like a jeer as Lily's trembling hands shot the deadbolt. She sank among the scattered papers, the breath stolen from her lungs as the old terror of the asylum returned. The call was instinct. The phone was already in her grip. Vincent answered before the second ring. Speak. They came to the shop. Lily's voice was fractured. 2 of them. They knew everything, Vincent. Had photos, my records. They brought up Sophie. They told me if you didn't stand down, they would. Where are you? His voice instantly hardened into cold steel. Lily, what is your location? The shop. I'm here. It's locked, but stay put. Open that door for no one but me. I am 10 minutes out. She heard a car door slam shut and the roar of an engine. Are you injured? Did they put their hands on you? No, it was all mental they had. Lily's gaze fell upon the photographs strewn across her floor. The images showed her just living mundane moments that were proof of a long, silent hunt. They've been watching me for weeks? A torrent of furious Italian crackled over the line. 10 minutes, Lily. For 10 minutes you do not move. He arrived in 7. Tires screamed on the pavement, followed by a sharp knock, and she let him inside. He pulled her into a bone-crushing embrace, one hand cradling her head, the other locking around her waist. I'm sorry, he rasped against her hair. God, I'm sorry. I should have seen this coming. I failed to protect you. You swore you would. You swore this world of yours would never touch me. Lily tore herself from his hold, her rage finally eclipsing her fear. They know about Sophie, Vincent, her address, her job. If anything happens to her because of me, she will not be harmed. You will not be harmed. He caught her face, forcing her to meet his gaze. Anyone who even considers bringing you pain, I will erase from existence. Do you hear me? Anyone. That's not a comfort. She shoved against his chest, desperate for air. You can't just kill the problem away. They have my life on paper. How can I ever feel secure again? A muscle feathered in Vincent's jaw. Pack a bag. You are coming with me until this is handled. No. Lily, absolutely not. I will not be chased out of my own home, my own business, because some animals see me as your vulnerability. She hugged herself, trying to still the tremors. You spoke of a code. Is this part of your code? This is a violation. His expression turned to granite. Civilians and family are untouchable. Our enemies are either desperate or foolish. His thumbs flew across his phone. I am assigning you a security detail. My men are watching your building, the store, and Sophie's residence. Any threat will be neutralized. Your men. A hollow, wounded laugh escaped her. A week ago, my biggest worry was wilting flowers. Now I require bodyguards simply for knowing you. He flinched as if struck. If you want me to leave, say the word. I will ensure your safety until this is over, and then I will vanish from your life. Is that your wish? He pressed. What I wish for is irrelevant. Your security is paramount. She watched the tension coil inside him as he created a distance, his hands clenching into tight fists. He presented her an escape, and she understood its profound cost to him. A montage of their time together played in her mind. The shared coffee, his acceptance of her scars, the gentleness of his touch. She recalled his rare admission of caring, the only vulnerability he'd ever shown. I don't want you to vanish. The words were softer than she intended. But I need this resolved, Vincent. Not with more brutality. I need it ended completely so that I can stop living in fear. I will. Vincent crossed the distance between them in a single step, his hand finding hers once more. "You have my solemn vow, Lily. This ends tonight." He honored that vow with chilling speed. Within hours, 2 operatives were observing her building, one from a parked car, the other from a cafe. Her shop was under similar watch by men who looked like patrons. Sophie's frantic call arrived that evening. "Lily, what in God's name is going on? Michael got a call from Vincent about a detail, and a car is now tailing me." Lily shut her eyes, resting her forehead against the cool glass of the window. "I am so sorry. I am so profoundly sorry. I should have told you everything much sooner." "Told me what?" "Vincent is involved in a war, and certain people believe they can use me, and by extension you, as a weapon against him." Speaking the words felt like a confession of defeat. "I tried to maintain a barrier between his life and ours, but it broke." Sophie was quiet for a long, tense moment. "Are you safe?" "I am. Vincent has men watching my place." "Good, that is good." Lily could hear Sophie's strained breathing. "Michael is beside himself. He was aware of who Vincent was, but he never foresaw this kind of fallout." "I know, I'm sorry." "Stop apologizing. You didn't cause this." Sophie's tone softened. "But Lil, I have to know it all. How far in are you with him?" "It's far." "Are you falling in love with him?" Lily remembered his fierce embrace, the look in his eyes, and the possessive timbre of his voice when he vowed to keep her safe. "Yes." The word was just a breath. "I believe I am." "Okay, then we'll navigate this with you." Sophie paused. "But if he gets you killed, I am going to be incredibly angry." Understood. Vincent did not return that night. A text arrived near midnight. "Resolving the issue, don't wait up." Lily lay awake through the long night, haunted by what resolving meant in his world. The solution walked through her door the next morning. He looked drained and somber, a new bruise coloring his jaw. "It is finished." Vincent sank onto her sofa, accepting the coffee she handed him. "The men who visited you are no longer concerned." "Define that for me, please." "It means their employer was strongly encouraged to enter a permanent retirement." He sipped his coffee, wincing as it touched a fresh cut on his lip. "And the 2 messengers received a very clear lesson on targeting non-combatants." Lily sat with him, observing the injuries and the deep weariness etched into his features. "Did anyone die?" "No." He held her gaze. "I wanted to, but it would have sparked a war, and you would have been caught in the crossfire." So he had found another path, a path governed by a core principle of his world. Ignorance is a shield. As he set his mug down, his hand covered hers, a gesture meant to close a dark chapter. The immediate danger had passed, and with it, his oppressive security detail. She was now free to reclaim her former life. A bitter laugh escaped her lips. A life, she mused, is not a coat you can simply shrug back on. Not after someone had weaponized your soul. Her world had never included men with guns. Withdrawing her hand, she pressed it to her temple, the image of conflict. "This is untenable, Vincent. I am not built for this kind of shattered reality." His voice was raw. "I know. And my promise to protect you is not enough. It is not a sufficient shield. You are entitled to an existence apart from this chaos, apart from me." But she refused to grant him the solace of a noble departure. "This isn't about giving you an honorable way out," Lily retorted, her voice strained. "It's about whether I can survive in your world without my own spirit being pulverized. I don't have an answer. Vincent gave a slow, somber nod. What is it you need? A truce. Room to breathe where your protection doesn't feel like another cage built around my fear. The admission was a painful knot in her throat. Can you give that to me? For how long? I don't know. A week, maybe longer. She saw the hurt land in his eyes and despised her own words. I'm not leaving you. I am trying to find out if I am strong enough to bear your love. He consented. As Vincent rose to leave, Lily could see the monumental strength it took for him to turn his back on her. 1 week, he repeated. I will make no contact. He paused. And Lily. She met his gaze. Yes? Your decision, regardless of what it is, will be honored, no matter the cost to me. He left, and the apartment was suddenly deafeningly silent, haunted by a choice she was already beginning to mourn. The following week became the longest 7 days of her existence. She clung to the rituals of her shop in a desperate performance of normalcy, arranging flowers and serving patrons. But each morning without his coffee felt wrong. Every night, the silence where his voice should have been bound, her staring at her phone, her thumb hovering motionless over his name. Sophie arrived on the 3rd day, her gaze instantly assessing the ruin of her friend before pulling Lily close. You're a disaster. A hollow smile touched Lily's lips. Thank you. Just what I needed to hear. Sophie took the now cold coffee, a small act of trespass among friends. I'm holding up better than you, it seems. Michael's stable. Vincent called, told him it was all over, even apologized for the chaos. He did? Sophie nodded over the cup. He sounded sincere. Her eyes were steady. So what now? With him? Lily's sigh was a surrender as she plucked dead petals from a rose. I am completely lost. One part of me knows I should flee, Lily confessed, her voice thin. But another feels his absence like a phantom limb. What does your gut tell you? My gut screams, I was a fool to step into a world I can't comprehend. Lily shredded the dead petals. But my heart says he was the first man since David to truly see me. Sophie's voice was a soft anchor. You have always been seen. But Lil, the way he watches you, that man would reduce this city to ash to keep you safe. The only real question is, can you live with that kind of wild fire held by a man who is that dangerous? I thought I could. Then those men appeared, and I saw how powerless I truly was. Lily met her friend's gaze. What if next time he can't stop it? What if someone else is hurt? Then you face it together. That is what love is. Choosing your person against the storm, against the dread. Sophie's hand found hers on the counter. But you have to choose, Lil. You can't exist in this limbo forever. That evening, Lily drew a line down a page. On one side, every reason to run. The peril, the secrets, the violence coiled beneath his calm surface. On the other, reasons to remain. The coffee, the comfortable silence, the way he saw her scars not as history but as survival. The list of reasons to stay was longer. She contemplated this, phone in hand, when a sharp rap struck the door. Her heart hammered her ribs. It had only been 5 days, not the full week. Had his resolve crumbled? Maybe he... She peered through the peephole, and her blood ran cold. Sophie stood in the hall, a wreck of ruined mascara and raw, unfiltered terror. Lily threw the door open. Soph, what is it? I need Vincent. Sophie stumbled inside, shaking so hard she could barely stand. You have to call him right now, please. What happened? Michael? The name shattered on her lips. Michael did something stupid. He borrowed money from the wrong guys to cover bad investments, and now they want $200,000 by Monday, or they're going to. She hid her face in her hands, her body racked with sobs. They sent pictures, Lily. Photos of their home, their family. They did the exact same thing to them as they did to you. An icy dread flooded Lily's veins. What people? Who did he borrow from? I don't know the exact details. Some lender out in Queens. Michael thought he could handle it, pay it back, but the interest is insane, and we are drowning, and they are threatening. Sophie's nails dug into Lily's arms. Vincent can fix this. He has the money, he has the power. Please, you have to ask him. A chilling calm settled over Lily. This was the nightmare she always feared, the wall between her world and Vincent's crumbling down, poisoning those she loved. But this was not his fault. This was Michael's desperation, Sophie's terror, and a brutal world that existed whether she knew it or not. Fine. Lily grabbed her phone. Okay, I'm calling. Vincent answered before it even rang once. Lily, I need your help. The words felt calmer than she was. Sophie is here. Michael got mixed up with a loan shark. They are making threats. It is bad, Vincent, really bad. I'm on my way. 20 minutes? A short pause. Are you safe right now? Yes. We are at my place. Lock your door. Do not open it for anyone but me. He arrived in 15 minutes, and when Lily opened the door, a fraction of her fear receded. Vincent took in Sophie's tear-streaked face, then Lily's, and his expression hardened into stone. Tell me everything, he ordered. Sophie let the whole, panicked story spill out. She recounted how Michael lost almost $300,000 on bad trades, how his panic drove him to a man from his gym. She laid out loan terms that sounded fine until the interest started compounding every single week. She described how they tried to keep up, how they defaulted, and how the threats started small before becoming ugly and fast. Vincent did not move a muscle the entire time, his face a complete blank. When Sophie finished, he took out his phone and made a call. Marco, I need intel on all loan shark operations in Astoria. Focus on someone's hitting guys in finance. A beat. I do not care what time it is. Get it done. He hung up and looked back at Sophie. Who exactly did Michael get the loan from? I need a name. Dmitri, something like that. He is Russian. He works out of a deli on Steinway Street. Sophie wiped at her face with a shaky hand. Please, Vincent, I know we are not close, and I know this is a huge thing to ask, but Michael is frozen with fear, and I do not know who else to call. Where is Michael now? At home, waiting. Sophie's voice was barely a whisper. They told him he has until Monday. That is in 3 days. A muscle in Vincent's jaw tightened. I get it. Here is the plan. You go home to Michael and tell him he cuts off all contact with Dmitri. No more money, no moves at all until he hears from me. Can you do that? Yes, but... No buts. I am handling this. Vincent's tone was absolute, leaving no room for argument. But Sophie, you need to understand something. If I make this go away, Michael never gets to make this mistake again. No more loan sharks, no more stupid gambles, no more dragging you into his messes. This is a one-time deal. Sophie nodded, her movements sharp with panic. I will make sure of it, I swear. Thank you, Vincent. Thank you so much. After Sophie left, Lily stayed in her kitchen, watching Vincent as he paced, snapping orders into his phone with that same cold authority she remembered from the night they first met. When he finally ended the call, the silence was suffocating. You cannot just pay off Michael's debt, Lily said quietly. Vincent turned to face her. And why not? Because that does not fix the real problem. It is just... She hunted for the right words. It is using your money and power like a band-aid on a fatal injury. What about the next person Dmitri goes after? What about all the others he has already trapped? That is not my problem. Yes, it is. You told me your world has rules, that there are consequences when people break them. Does Dmitri not deserve consequences? Vincent stared at her for a long, quiet moment. What are you asking me to do, Lily? I am asking for a real solution, not just a payout, not just making Michael's problem vanish. Lily crossed her arms, faking a bravery she did not feel. Make sure Dmitri can never do this to anyone ever again. You are asking me to tear down his whole operation. I am asking you to deliver justice. A rough, empty laugh escaped Vincent. Justice. In my world, that word does not mean anything. There is only what makes money and what does not. Smart or stupid. Survival. I do not believe that. Lily stepped toward him, not backing down. You could have killed the men who came after me. You did not, because it would have started a war. That was the just thing to do. It was tactical. It was both. She reached out, her fingers touching his, feeling the tension locked in his arm. Sophie is my best friend, Vincent. She was the only person left after his life had driven all others away. Lily presented the moral choice. If Dmitri is left to prey on others, just to keep Michael safe, it is a deal she cannot accept. The conflict was clear on Vincent's face. She was asking him to start a war against a serious power. This was no small thing. He knew people could get hurt, maybe even her. Lily, her voice shaking, shot down his attempt to separate things. Their worlds were now linked through Sophie and Michael, pulling him into Vincent's territory. The choice was clear: wipe out the whole threat or walk away. Vincent pulled his hand back, looking away, the stress showing in the rigid set of his shoulders as he fought an internal battle. His voice, when he finally spoke, was like stone. He made it clear that taking on Dmitri would not be some noble quest. There is no honor here, just a brutal, bloody message that predators are not allowed in his territory. Then he put it on her. Could she live with that brutal truth, or with the fallout of doing nothing? Her answer, that she had seen worse, he ignored. That is not an answer. He turned, his face open, daring her for asking him to break his own rules of survival for strangers in a world that eats men like him alive. She just asked him to try. Lily moved closer to him, trying to change how he saw himself. He once said she deserved a better man. Maybe he deserved a life better than the one he thought he was stuck with. For a long second, Vincent just looked at her. Then he pulled her in, a desperate move, like she was the only thing holding him together. All right, he whispered, I will try. The next 48 hours were a whirlwind of secret calls, and Vincent disappearing for long stretches, returning with fresh bruises and grim news. In those 2 days, Lily's crash course in his world sped up, as she learned the language of territory, loyalty, and the weak truce keeping New York's criminal world from imploding. She came to understand that Dmitri Volkov presided over a loan-sharking empire that had devoured at least 17 families this year, its interest rates a deliberate, impossible trap. His affiliation with a Russian outfit in Brighton Beach was tenuous at best. While his methods of collection were brutal, his own defenses were riddled with weaknesses. He possessed no true allegiance, Vincent explained that Saturday morning. His kitchen table, a command center of laptops and documents. The Brighton Beach crew considered him an asset, not a brother. They would never go to war for him. The strategy, therefore, was to present him with an offer. Vincent's smile was a cold, empty space. Dmitri would forgive every debt, not only Michael's, but all of them, and then he would dismantle his entire operation. In return, Vincent would refrain from methodically annihilating his enterprise and revealing to every predator in the city just how vulnerable he was. He anticipated Dmitri would resist, but ultimately crumble. With a clinical snap, Vincent closed the laptop. Men like Dmitri grasp only one concept: power. He believes it belongs to him. Vincent was poised to correct this fundamental flaw in his worldview. Lily avoided asking about the grim mechanics of Vincent's plan, the specter of Sophie's fear a potent deterrent. Some burdens are heavier when shared. On Sunday night, Vincent returned with Marco, his intelligence specialist, and another man introduced simply as Tony. Their demeanor was professional, yet they radiated a quiet lethality that set Lily's nerves alight. "We require your living room for a few hours," Vincent stated. A strategy meeting. He offered her an escape, the sanctuary of her bedroom, or she could abandon the apartment entirely. Lily's gaze fell upon the three men who now commanded her small home, their equipment and grave presence altering the very air, making it thick with the promise of violence. A primal scream in her soul urged her to run, to escape the hell they were about to summon, and yet she knew she was anchored to this. She had insisted he treat the sickness, not just the symptoms. Witnessing the procedure now felt like the barest cost of her demand. "I'm staying," she declared, "but on one condition. My bedroom door remains open." The tension in Vincent's face eased almost imperceptibly. A fair term. From her room, she bore witness to their calm, dispassionate blueprint for destruction, and so she found herself listening as Vincent charted the complete and utter demolition of another man's world. This should have felt horrifying, should it not? But it didn't. Instead, a fierce, strange pride bloomed within her, knowing this reckoning was not just for Michael, but for every soul Dmitri had shattered. Marco and Tony departed near midnight. Vincent discovered Lily on her bed, feigning interest in a book she hadn't truly seen in years. He delivered the news from the doorway. His meeting with Dmitri was set for the next day. As for the danger, it was absolute. Vincent crossed the room. "Dmitri will not accept my terms peacefully. He is going to react with force." But he had contingencies. Marco and Tony would be positioned nearby, he assured her, and he carried a comprehensive file, a ledger detailing Dmitri's sins and a roster of allies prepared to abandon him. Vincent's hand closed over hers. "This is me, attempting your way, Lily. To do this without bloodshed." "I know." Her fingers tightened around his, "and I am utterly terrified, as am I." "Truly?" "Yes." A hollow sound, almost a laugh, escaped him. "You make me desire to be a better man. And that is the most frightening thing in existence. To be better is to have something you cannot bear to lose." Lily guided him down to lie next to her, allowing the shadows to conceal them. "Promise me you'll be careful tomorrow." "I promise. And promise you will come back. Always." Vincent's kisses traced a path across her face, her forehead, her cheek, her lips. "I will always come back to you." They fell asleep in a tangle of limbs, and Lily dreamt of wildflowers pushing through scorched earth. Monday afternoon was a single sustained note of anxiety. Lily attempted to craft a floral arrangement, but her hands trembled too violently to work. Her gaze was fixed upon her phone, awaiting a message that refused to arrive. Sophie called. Any word? Not yet. Lily tore the leaves from a rose, wincing as a thorn pierced her thumb. The meeting is this afternoon. Michael is an absolute mess. He wanted to go down there and, I can't imagine what, play the hero. Sophie's voice was strained. I told him to stand down and have faith in Vincent. The right call. Lily watched a single drop of blood well up on her thumb. This is Vincent's arena. Michael would only have become collateral. Hey, Lil, can I ask you something? Of course. Do you have any regrets? Becoming involved with him, seeing the truth of his life? If you could return to that wedding, would you still accept his hand for that dance? Lily thought of coffee and bruised knuckles, of how he saw her scars not as damage but as strength. She weighed the terror, the danger, and the sharp, irrefutable reality that loving him came at a staggering cost. Yes, she said, her voice quiet but firm. I would dance with him again, even knowing what you know now, especially knowing this. Lily set the rose aside, her eyes on the blood. Because he makes me feel alive, Soph. For the first time since David, I am truly living, not merely surviving. That's incredible. That's so incredible. Sophie's voice broke with emotion. I just pray we all make it through what's coming. At 4:30, Lily's phone vibrated. She grabbed it so quickly she almost dropped it. Vincent's message was 2 words. It's done. Coming to you. Relief washed over Lily with such force her legs felt weak. She began to type her reply. Are you all right? What is all right? I am breathing. Nothing is broken. He appeared an hour later, looking as though he had passed through fire and emerged on the other side. A dark bruise was blooming on his cheek, and his shirt was torn, but he was smiling as she opened the door. It's finished, he repeated, drawing her into his arms. Dmitri has been dealt with. Every debt is erased, every ledger clean. He will be gone from New York before the week is out. How did you... It turns out he had accumulated far more enemies than allies. The moment I showed him his Brighton Beach support was ready to abandon him, he understood that to fight me would be to lose everything. Vincent's arms held her tighter, so he folded. And Michael? He is clear, as is Sophie. I made it absolutely plain to Dmitri that if he ever went near them again, there would be no second negotiation. Lily pulled back to study his face. The bruise, the profound exhaustion, and the pure victory shining in his eyes. You did it. You really did it. We did it. This was your strategy. Don't forget. Vincent's fingers gently brushed her cheek. You challenged me to be a better man. It appears you were right. I could be. Does it feel good? Being better? It feels as though I've just painted a massive target on my back for every other predator in this city. Vincent's smile was dark. But yes, it feels good. Standing there in her doorway, silhouetted by the setting sun, a profound truth crystallized for Lily. She saw the violent, perilous, and beautifully chaotic nature of their bond, and she chose it, all of it. She chose him. I love you, she confessed, the words spilling out before she could contain them. I know it's insane and reckless and completely terrifying, but I love you. Vincent's eyes widened, his entire guarded facade disintegrating, leaving behind something raw and vulnerable. Say it again. I love you, Vincent Russo, with all of your secrets, your dangers, and your broken, beautiful way of mending things, Lily repeated. a laugh bubbling up with the release of so much tension. They sealed their confession with a searing kiss that felt more like a solemn vow. "It's been true since that first dance," he whispered against her lips. "Perhaps even longer." They moved inside, and Lily closed the door. For the first time in 3 years, she skipped her ritual of checking the locks, an unspoken surrender of her safety into his hands. The following week was a fragile, false peace. Michael and Sophie offered their gratitude, and Vincent's ever-present sentinels receded into the periphery. A new rhythm began, Lily in her shop, and Vincent orchestrating his world of shadows. The silence in Vincent's life was always merely an intermission, designed to be shattered, and it broke on a Thursday evening, 14 days after the Dmitri affair had been laid to rest. As Lily was locking her shop, a blocked number appeared on her screen. After a moment's hesitation, she answered. A crisp, unfamiliar male voice spoke. "Lily Morgan, who is this?" "My name is Detective Chen, NYPD Organized Crime." A heavy silence descended. "I need to talk to you regarding Vincent Rasso?" A cold dread began to seep through her, but before she could issue a denial, he interrupted. "Let's dispense with the pretense. We've had Mr. Russo under surveillance for 6 months. We know about you." Detective Chen's voice cut through her defenses, outlining his knowledge of the Dmitry Volkov incident. "Then you're aware Vincent was helping?" Lily countered, her mind desperately seeking leverage. "He removed a man who was harming people." The detective simply inverted her logic. He eliminated a business competitor. Chen then extended what he called a lifeline, labeling her a good person entangled with a deeply dangerous man. Lily rejected it without pause. "I do not require an exit." In response, Chen recited a list of 12 potential felony counts, from racketeering to extortion. "We are constructing our case, Ms. Morgan," Chen said with finality, "and Vincent Russo is going to prison. The only remaining variable is if you will be in the cell beside him." Her knuckles turned white around her phone. "What is it you want?" she whispered. "Information, testimony," he replied, presenting the brutal equation, her freedom in exchange for his. She named it betrayal. He called it survival. He ended the conversation by urging her to consider her future and provided a number to call, but her hands were trembling too much to even consider writing it down. When the line went dead, the silence in the shop was suffocating. Her first impulse was to race to Vincent, to sound the alarm, but Chen's threats held her in a state of paralysis. That night, she lay beside a sleeping Vincent, her mind a war zone. She struggled to reconcile the man beside her with the monster the police were hunting. A single question played on a relentless loop. Could loving him possibly be worth the sacrifice they were demanding of her? He felt the shift beside him, the quiet hum of her anxiety in the darkness. "What's keeping you up?" His voice was rough with sleep. "Just thoughts. About this, everything. About the day your life comes calling for its debts." Sleep was a ghost, gone in an instant. He became a tightly wound spring. "What have you heard?" Her reply was a shadow of the truth, a whisper of the fear that consumed her. "It's nothing, I suppose. Just a feeling that this is too perfect to be real." He drew her in, his reassurances a familiar balm. "Nothing's coming for us. We're fine. I have this handled." But for the first time, the foundation of his confidence felt like a lie. The realization settled over her, as final and heavy as a casket closing. Choosing him each morning was a slow pilgrimage toward her own undoing. She met his lips in a kiss steeped in desperation, shadowed by untruths, yet beautiful in its own fractured way. "Promise me," She breathed against his lips. Anything. That you'll remember this, that I loved you no matter how it ends. His reply, nothing is ending, was the fragile myth they both desperately clung to. She held him, caught between two impossible betrayals, searching for the one that would leave the smallest scar on her soul. The dilemma was stark, its simplicity monstrous. Her life or his. The wail of far-off sirens had become the city's lullaby. It no longer made her jump. She lay awake through the long night, an unbearable pressure on her soul. Her thoughts replaying two separate paths to the future, each one a roadmap to devastation. When dawn broke, Vincent departed, oblivious to the wreckage in her gaze. A man so consumed by his own storm, he couldn't see the world beside him collapsing into itself. After he left, Lily's eyes fixed on the unfamiliar number in her call log. Calling Chen was the logical path, the self-preservation instinct. But logic had evaporated the day Vincent walked into her life. In a single decisive gesture, she chose her loyalty and erased the contact forever. What followed was a hollow performance of normalcy as she feigned ignorance to the unseen eyes on her, going through the motions of a life she understood had already expired. Her unease had bloomed into raw paranoia. Every unfamiliar face on the street looked like a detective in disguise. The strain was becoming a visible crack in her composure, and her colleague, Sophie, took notice. "You look like you haven't slept in days." Lily attempted a weak deflection. "Just buried in work," but the lie was transparent. "Don't even try that with me. What's going on?" Lily went still, caught between the urge to confess and the terror that giving the nightmare a voice would make it irrevocably real. To speak of it to Sophie would be to give it form and substance. "A detective called me," she finally confessed, her voice thin. "He's building a case against Vincent." After Sophie's shocked pause, Lily detailed the arrangement he'd proposed for her cooperation. "He wants me to help send him to prison." "And what did you say?" "I gave him no answer. I ended the call." Cutting off Sophie's impending plea, Lily stated, "I won't do it, Soph. I refuse to be the one who betrays him. Even if it means you go down too." "Even then." Her words were a vow, and her own sentence. "I love him," she admitted, the words feeling both true and utterly mad. "I can't be the one who locks his cage." Sophie shifted her approach, insisting Lily had to warn Vincent to give him a chance to prepare. "He deserves to face this with you," she insisted. The shot of telling him felt like throwing fuel on a raging fire, but Sophie was resolute. "He needs to know, and you can't bear this alone." Later that evening, the sight of Vincent, calm and unaware, gave her the painful courage to begin the conversation from hell. "We have to talk." Just like that, every trace of warmth vanished from Vincent's expression. His entire body stiffened, an instinctual defense against an unseen threat. "Go on." Meeting his hardened stare, Lily began. "A detective reached out to me a week ago. He knows about us. About Dmitri. He put a deal on the table for immunity." The silence that followed was absolute. Vincent's expression was unreadable, but his hands were balled into fists. "And what was your answer?" His question was a marvel of restraint. "I gave him nothing. I erased his number. I will not be their key to your cage, Vincent." "I won't be the person who sends you to prison," she reiterated, a faint tremor in her hands. "But they are getting close." His admission stunned her into silence. "I know. I've been tracking it for months." A profound exhaustion settled onto his features as he gave his reason. He'd stayed silent to shield her from the weight of it all, a hollow masculine excuse. When she pushed back, he let out a cynical laugh, as if true honesty about his world were a childish fantasy. It seems my strategy for your safety has been a complete failure. The failure itself felt like a presence between them. A surge of anger rose in Lily, a desperate shield against the pure terror beneath. Her inquiry about his strategy was a frantic bid for some semblance of control. His plan was brutally direct: remove the proof and silence the storytellers. Vincent closed the space between them, his touch a strategic effort to soothe her. My purpose now is to eliminate all threats, secure assets, and make certain any witnesses become unhelpful. She understood the chilling implication. Tampering. He termed it insurance. A tight muscle in his jaw betrayed his internal pressure. He conceded his focus was now on damage control, the outlook grim. Lily stepped back, needing space to process. And what is the contingency if you're arrested? What becomes of us then? You sever all connection. You claim we were ending things, that you were ignorant of my affairs, and you reclaim the life you had before me. That's not a solution. It is the only protocol that ensures your safety. A slight quaver in his tone exposed a fissure in his iron exterior. Lily, we knew the terms from the beginning. This was always a possibility. So, I'm supposed to just let you go to prison? If it keeps you safe, absolutely. He moved in, his hands framing her face with a fierce need. I can survive a cell. I can survive having nothing. I cannot survive you becoming a casualty of my war. A flood of tears welled in Lily's eyes, a deluge she contained with sheer willpower. I despise this. I despise that we can't solve this like a normal couple. I realize that. I am sorry. Don't be sorry, be brilliant. She seized his wrists, her grip a desperate appeal. You are Vincent Russo. Your reputation is built on solving the impossible. Solve this. This is a different beast. Then tame it. Find a way out that doesn't leave you in a cell and me a traitor. Her voice rose, sharp with anguish. You told me you cared for me. Show me. Fight for us instead of resigning yourself to this. Vincent was motionless, her fiery refusal reshaping his entire outlook. He drew her into an embrace, holding her like she was the last port in a storm. All right, he breathed into her hair. All right, I will find a way. His vow led to 2 weeks of clandestine meetings and coded calls. Lily soon learned of Elena, the lawyer Vincent had retained, a legal predator known for tearing apart state cases who had been running a counter-investigation. The central obstacle was the state's case, which was ironclad, linking Vincent to everything from extortion to money laundering. The most optimistic outcome is a plea bargain for reduced charges, Elena stated in a strained meeting Lily had insisted on attending. We could likely negotiate a minimal sentence. Define minimal, Lily pressed. 3 to 5 years with parole for good conduct. Beneath the table, Vincent's hand enclosed hers, a silent anchor in the storm. That result is unacceptable. Then the terms of the deal must improve. Elena regarded them with the cool, dispassionate gaze of a clinician. A complete dismissal of charges is possible, but only with his full cooperation. He'd have to turn state's evidence on his superiors. No. The refusal from Vincent was swift and absolute. I am not an informant. Not even if that's your only path to acquittal. Not even then. His jaw was set, his rigid code on full display. Informing on my associates is a death sentence. I will take my chances inside. The world began to tilt for Lily. This was his brutal calculus, a reality where the options narrowed to a grave or a cage, and loyalty bought you nothing but honor. An urge surfaced within her to rage against the twisted logic of his life, to plead with him to choose her over his fatal code. Yet she understood that to shatter his principles would be to destroy the very man she loved. She was in love with him, not a broken version of him. There must be another way, she insisted softly. Some small detail we have overlooked. A silent look was exchanged between Elena and Vincent. One other option exists, Elena offered cautiously. But the risk is astronomical, and it requires perfect execution. What is it? We allow them to take Vincent into custody. We let them believe they have won. Elena opened a folder, laying out its contents. And before they make their move, we orchestrate the complete erasure of the key evidence against him. Key witnesses will find their accounts filled with untraceable funds, and then they'll simply vanish. You're talking about obstructing justice, Lily said, her voice flat. I'm talking about a strategy to eviscerate the state's argument before it sees a courtroom, Elena countered, her tone sharp. It's both illegal and immoral, but it's an option that could actually succeed. Vincent dismissed it with a wave. Far too unpredictable. The risk of a catastrophic backfire is too great. Do you have a superior plan? I do. I disappear. The words fell into the stillness of the room. A frantic pulse hammered against Lily's ribs. Disappear? What does that mean? It means I'm pulling myself from the board entirely. I leave New York, maybe even the country, and create a new existence beyond the NYPD's grasp. Vincent aimed the question at Elena, his gaze avoiding Lily's. How long would I need to be gone? Years, most likely, possibly forever. Elena snapped the folder shut with finality. It also involves severing every connection to your life right now, your family, your whole network. A single misplaced call acts like a homing signal. All of them. Lily's voice was a mere whisper. Including. Vincent's eyes at last met hers, the anguish in them undeniable. It would diminish the danger for us both. The danger, Lily let out a sharp, broken laugh of disbelief. Is that your name for this? For deserting me as a form of protection? I call it ensuring you don't become a pawn in a federal penitentiary. Vincent's hands balled into tight fists. If I remain, they will drag you in, lean on you for information, and systematically ruin your life to use against me. If I'm gone, you're just the scorned ex-lover of no value to their case, and I'd be left to wonder for the rest of my days if you were even alive. Lily shoved her chair back, creating a chasm between them. That isn't protection, Vincent. It's a more refined method of mental torture. This is the only play that guarantees you're untouched by the fallout. I don't want to be untouched if the price is you. The words tore from her, raw and desperate. I already endured 3 years of that hell with David. I will not go back there. Vincent started to close the distance, but Lily flinched. No, do not touch me and act like this is some noble sacrifice. If you intend to run, at least tell me the true reason. What is it you need me to say? I need you to admit you are terrified, that you're picking the coward's way out instead of fighting for what we have. Lily's vision swam with tears she refused to shed. I need you to acknowledge that this is about saving yourself. The line struck him like a physical blow. Vincent actually winced, gripping the table for balance. For the first time she had ever seen him, he looked completely broken. "You're right," he choked out, the words ripped from his very soul. "I am petrified. I'm petrified my existence will destroy you. I'm petrified my ruin will drag you down with me. I'm petrified that I am not enough for you." His voice cracked. "Running is the simple solution, and you are right. It would be an act of cowardice." Lily closed the space between them, her hands framing his face. "So don't flee. Stay and fight with me. We will face this united, as a unit. And if we fail, what happens if this can't be won? Then we fail as a unit." She kissed him, a flavor of salt and utter desperation. "But we will fall with our heads held high." Elena's voice cut through the heavy air. "I hate to interrupt, but our opportunity is closing. The police could be on their way. A decision is needed." Vincent looked at Lily, his eyes posing the question. She gave a single, resolute nod. He turned to Elena. "Explain the strategy for dismantling their entire case." The next week was a maelstrom, a dark fusion of legal warfare and criminal strategy. As Elena deployed operatives and Vincent leveraged threats, Lily received a crash course in Vincent's world, absorbing its harsh rhythm and helping him however she could. Unexpectedly, she discovered a core of steel within herself, becoming frighteningly good at parsing criminal data and observing raw intimidation without wavering. Loving Vincent meant embracing all of him, the masterful puppeteer who loathed the law. The arrest occurred on a Tuesday, 3 weeks after Detective Chen first appeared. A coded message buzzed on Vincent's phone. "They have arrived. Initiate the plan." Her hand trembled as she replied, "I love you. The feeling is returned. Be strong." She locked her shop, went home, and began the long wait. 2 hours later, Detective Chen materialized, his expression a mask of manufactured sympathy. "Morgan, it's my duty to inform you that Vincent Russo was taken into custody earlier today. The charges involve racketeering and extortion." This was the precise script Lily had practiced with Elena. "I am not familiar with those terms. Vincent operates an import company. Ms. Morgan, we are aware of your relationship. We know it's been about 3 months." Chen's voice was slick, attempting to be disarming. "I am not here to arrest you. I simply need you to answer some questions." "Am I being accused of an offense?" "Not at this time. In that situation, I require an attorney present before I speak further." Lily's voice was a weapon, honed by 3 years of therapy and survival. "I am going to have to request that you leave my home this instant." Chen's face was resigned, but not surprised. "My card contains my number should you choose to cooperate." The moment they left, Lily shot 3 separate bolts on her door before she collapsed onto the couch, her strong exterior shattering into a million pieces, leaving only silence. The arraignment was held the next day. From the gallery, Lily watched them escort Vincent in, the orange jumpsuit a stark contrast to the man she knew, his hands bound. His eyes met hers across the courtroom, and for a fleeting moment his stern expression softened. The prosecution presented their argument, a mountain of witness accounts, tainted financial documents, and damning surveillance. The evidence seemed to be a conclusive case, but then Elena began her work, methodically deconstructing it. She uncovered every witness's vulnerability and contested the integrity of the evidence until the state's argument seemed like pure conjecture. The judge decreed bail at $2 million, a figure Vincent's family produced in less than an hour. He appeared at her apartment that night, tethered to the free world by an ankle monitor. They simply embraced, a silent vow that this was merely the first battle in a prolonged war. "The trial is scheduled for 2 months from today," Vincent finally said. "Elena feels confident most charges will be dropped. And the ones that remain? Probably probation, possibly community service." He pulled away to look at her. "There is a genuine chance I could emerge from this unscathed, Lily. We could actually win this." But this triumph was arriving with a cost Lily never anticipated. In 6 weeks that ensued, she witnessed the very framework of Vincent's life get systematically demolished. Associates disappeared, business connections were cut, and the very family that had funded his bail began to retreat from his toxic legal battle. On the night before the trial, Vincent's uncle Antonio, the supposed philanthropist, made a visit. "You have become a liability," Antonio stated, his voice utterly devoid of emotion. "The family cannot absorb the fallout from your association with this matter." Vincent's face became an unreadable mask. He had invested his entire life in the family. He was their instrument, their weapon. And now that same family presented him with the choice, a prison cell, or the arrangement Antonio slid before him. The terms were cold and direct: plead guilty to lesser offenses, serve 18 months in a low-security facility, and in return he would become the ultimate betrayer, giving up the name of every single person in the organization above him. The room fell deathly silent. An icy chill crept through Lily as she finally grasped Antonio's strategy. They wanted Vincent to set his own world ablaze, to incinerate the family he had served, merely to protect themselves. "Are you ordering me to become an informant?" Vincent's voice was a low, threatening rumble. He was being told, Antonio retorted, to be a strategist. Accept the plea, serve the time, and the family's support would remain. Refuse, and you are left with nothing. "Leave!" Vincent commanded, his entire body radiating a menace Lily had never witnessed before. "Get out of my residence before our shared blood becomes meaningless." Antonio left without another word, leaving the proposal on the table like a venomous snake. "You aren't actually considering that, are you?" Lily whispered. "No." Vincent tossed that envelope aside. "But it damn well clarifies my standing with my family. The trial consumed the next 3 weeks." Lily maintained a vigil in the courtroom each day, watching the prosecution depict Vincent as a monster, only to see Elena dismantle their narrative brick by brick. Witness after witness completely disintegrated under her cross-examination. Evidence was thrown out. Key testimonies were judged as unreliable. The entire defense was nothing short of a miracle. When the jury returned, guilty on 2 minor counts, acquitted on all others, Lily felt a surge of relief, so powerful it was physical. The sentencing followed a week later. 3 years probation, 500 hours of community service, and a staggering fine. Vincent walked out the courtroom a free man. That night, a profound quiet enveloped her apartment as they both absorbed the aftershocks. The words felt foreign on his tongue, thick with disbelief. "It's over, we made it." But the peace was fragile. "Not entirely," Lily countered, her hand finding his. "You still have probation, they are still watching. But I am a free man, and you were never." His voice frayed. "You never had to take the stand, never had to choose between my life and your own. I chose you." Lily's voice was a steel anchor as she leaned into him. "I will always choose you." After a long pause, he finally confessed the rest. "The family has severed everything. Refusing Antonio's offer was the final betrayal. I'm a ghost to them now. What does that mean for you?" "It means I start over." It means I discover who Vincent Russo is without an empire at his back. He turned, his gaze locking with hers. And in this new life, is there any space for a florist from Brooklyn? For what felt like the first time in an age, a genuine smile blossomed on her face. I believe some room can be made. Over the following year, Vincent began the grueling work of reinventing himself. He channeled his private capital, which he swore was untainted, into a logistics consultancy. He paid his dues to society at a youth center, teaching teenagers about the high cost of consequences. He stayed by Lily's side, bringing coffee, helping in her shop, and building a foundation on absolute transparency. But the quiet was never complete. Vincent was tormented by nightmares of his cell, moving through the world with the constant paranoia of a man who'd seen war. For Lily, there were moments the old fear would surge, compelling her to check the door locks 4 times instead of her customary 3. They fought about his impulse to solve her problems and her tendency to go silent under stress, but they were learning, becoming 2 whole people who were a fortress together. Sophie and Michael offered their wary approval. Vincent made it clear to Michael that the days of betting, of dangerous markers, of endangering Sophie were gone. Michael finally broke, sought therapy, and started the brutally slow work of rebuilding trust. The real trial came 18 months after the verdict, when his probation officer paid a surprise visit and found Lily cooking in the kitchen. "Didn't know you had company," the officer noted. "I didn't feel it was relevant," Vincent replied, his voice cold as stone. "Every variable is relevant." The officer's attention then shifted to Lily. "Are you aware of his file, of the things he has done?" "I am fully aware," Lily said, her gaze steady. "And I am still here." The officer watched them for a long, calculating second. "You are either one of the bravest women I've ever met, or one of the most foolish." "Likely a measure of both," Lily admitted. "But I am happy." The moment he left, Vincent pulled Lily into his arms. "You did not need to defend me." "I absolutely did," she insisted, "because you belong to me, and I do not allow people to tarnish what is mine." A deep laugh rumbled in Vincent's chest, a vibration she felt through her own. "When did you become so damn ferocious?" "I had a good instructor." 2 years after the trial, Vincent's probation was over. He had satisfied every term, followed every rule, and built a thriving, legitimate business. The monitoring band was clipped from his ankle, severing the last physical chain to his old life. That night, he took Lily to the Italian restaurant where he first told her he loved her. Rose's grandmother was still making carbonara, and their table was waiting. "I have to ask you something," Vincent said once their meals arrived. And saying no is a perfectly valid option. In fact, it is the most rational one, because this is unconventional and we have only known each other for 2.5 years. And Vincent. Lily's hand stilled his across the table. "Just ask me." He presented a small box, opening it to reveal a plain gold band with a single diamond. "I know that I am damaged. I know my past is a shadow that will follow us forever, and that being with me is more difficult than it should be. But you make me want to be better. You make me believe I can be." His voice cracked. "Marry me." Lily looked at the ring, then at the fragile hope warring with fear in Vincent's eyes, and at the future they were building from scars and hard-earned faith. She thought of how they had survived threats, courtrooms, terror, and the immense, difficult choice to simply stay. "Yes," she breathed, as pure, unadulterated joy transformed Vincent's face. "Yes, I will marry you." They were married 6 months later, in a quiet ceremony at Sophie and Michael's house, with only their inner circle present. There was no lavish party, no elaborate decorations, just two people vowing to choose each other every single day for the rest of their lives. Lily wore a simple cream dress, carrying a bouquet from Sophie's own wedding. Vincent was in a suit that had lost its intimidating edge. He looked almost at peace as he said his vows. "I promise to bring you coffee every single morning," he vowed, making a tearful Lily laugh. "I promise to check the locks with you as many times as it takes. I promise to tell you the truth when it's hard, and I promise to spend every day of my life trying to be worthy of your love." "I promise to call you on your bullshit," Lily responded. "I promise to push you toward greatness. I promise to stay when it gets frightening. And I promise to love you exactly as you are, with all of your scars." They shared a kiss as husband and wife, and Lily felt a profound sense of rightness, of finally coming home to herself. 3 years later, Vincent stood in a community center speaking to at-risk youth about making better choices than he did. Lily watched from afar as he resonated with teens who saw a part of themselves in him, a man who had walked their same dark road and found an exit. When he finished, a young woman approached Vincent, her fear visible. "How do you know if you are making the right call?" she asked. "I mean, how can you know if something is worth the risk?" Vincent's gaze found Lily's across the crowded room. Lily offered a small, reassuring smile. "You can never be entirely sure. But sometimes you find a person or a purpose that makes you brave, that compels you to act despite your fear, or perhaps because of it. Does it always end well?" "No," Vincent admitted. "You can choose wrong, and those choices have a price. But other times—" He reached out, his fingers intertwining with Lily's. "Other times the choice is the right one, and it redefines your entire world." The girl mulled over his words before walking away to think. Vincent drew Lily close, kissing her temple. "Are you all right?" he asked. "More than all right." Lily leaned against him, feeling the steady rhythm of his heart. "I am home." And it was true. This was not the quiet, unseen life she had planned for herself, but something far more real. It was a home built on hard truths and harder choices, on a dangerous love and a trust forged in the furnace of trauma. Vincent created a foundation, using his legitimate business profits to help families escape the same loan sharks that had nearly broken Michael and Sophie. Lily, for her part, had expanded her shop, hiring 2 assistants and taking on much larger floral contracts. They bought a small house in Brooklyn with a garden where she could cultivate her own flowers, a sanctuary where they could perform their nightly ritual of securing the doors and finally believe they were safe. They were not perfect. Vincent still had days where the ghost of his past rose up, when he battled the man he was against, the man he was trying to be. Lily still had nights ambushed by panic and the phantom ache of her scars, but they weathered those moments together. They had fashioned a life from the broken pieces of 2 people who met in a ballroom and refused to ever let go. 5 years after their wedding, Lily awoke to find Vincent watching her with an intensity she recognized as the sign of a restless mind. In this later, quiet moment, her whispered question shows she is still braced for disaster. His reply, "Everything is right," sets the new golden rule for their reality. Vincent's reflection on their first meeting paints their whole relationship as a lucky accident, a near miss, with a life of being alone. Her response shifts the story from chance to his choice. She reminds him that his deliberate move, asking her to dance, was what kicked everything off. Her comeback, that the coffee was the superior play, lifts the quiet, steady gestures above the big, romantic ones. His laughter, a genuine piece of their shared history, highlights the security they have now built, while his confession of being terrified shows the vulnerability hidden beneath his initial boldness. His logic was simple. The potential prize of her company was worth more than the definite fear he felt. This rule remains the core principle of their bond. Their quiet intimacy in the morning is not some fairy tale ending, but a hard-won peace. The external chaos of New York City acts as a constant background noise against which their sanctuary is built. Inside their home, they have carved out a space immune to that disorder. It is a life made from authentic, terrifying choices, not pre-written plot points. When Vincent leaves to start the coffee ritual, Lily's own ritual of checking the locks is proof that healing is not about forgetting, but integrating. It is just another day of choosing the bond they forged. From the broken pieces of their pasts, held together by an unwavering, deliberate hope. Model.
Everybody thinks the betrayal is the saddest part. It isn't. The saddest part is what they had to become just to survive. Let him pause this story right at the beginning because everybody always gets distracted by the Mafia aesthetic, the tailored suits, the intense eye contact, the damaged girl, the dangerous man. The whole package looks like romance wrapped in crime thriller packaging. But that is bait. The real story is much meaner than that. Because this is not really about whether Vincent Russo and Lily Morgan love each other. Of course they do. That part becomes obvious fast. The real question is this: what does love cost when both people were already mutilated by life before they met? That is where the story stops being sexy and starts being honest. Look at Lily first. People around her probably call her quiet, sweet, reserved, maybe even fragile. No, what she actually is trained by fear, trained by memory, trained by the experience of learning that a person who says he loves you can also become the reason your body never feels like home again. So she builds a small, careful life. She runs a flower shop, she keeps routines, she hides the scars, she keeps joy on a short leash because joy, in her experience, and has a nasty habit of attracting pain right after it. Now look at Vincent. Everybody loves pretending men like him are born dominant. Wrong again. Men like Vincent are often manufactured by systems that reward emotional numbness, surveillance, quick retaliation, and selective honesty. He is not simply confident. He is optimized. He has been shaped into a person who knows how to assess threat, apply pressure, and stay useful in a world where softness gets eaten alive. So yes, they are attracted to each other, but not for the reasons shallow people think. Lily does not fall for him because he is dangerous. Vincent does not fall for her because she is innocent. They fall because each one sees the survival pattern in the other. And that is the first lesson. People are often loved first through their damage before they are ever loved through their beauty. That sounds romantic until it is not. Because the thing that makes them understand each other is also the thing that makes them capable of destroying each other. Lily knows what control feels like when it wears the mask of care. Vincent knows what fear looks like when it starts living inside someone's posture. So from the very beginning, their relationship is standing on a knife edge. One wrong move and what feels like healing starts feeling like reenactment. Now here's where the script gets viciously smart. Vincent thinks he can build a relationship with Lily while keeping the ugly truth compartmentalized. He will bring coffee, he will flirt, he will be gentle, he will leave the blood, the threats, and the criminal calculus somewhere else. He is trying to split himself into man she loves and man who handles the dark stuff. That split never works. Never. Because whatever a person refuses to tell the truth about will eventually introduce itself without permission. And when it does, it is ugly. Men show up in the Lily shop with files, pictures, and threats. Not only are they attacking her present, they are reopening her past. That is the cruel genius of this story. The villains do not merely threaten her life, they threaten her sense of authorship. They take the most private parts of her survival and convert them into negotiation tools. That is evil in its purest emotional form. This gives us the second lesson. The deepest violation is not being hurt. It is being turned into leverage. And this is also the moment where Vincent's entire model of love gets exposed. He thinks love means I will handle it. Lily forces the truth out into the open. No, love also means you will stop making choices about my life without me. He wants to promise destruction. She wants actual safety. He wants to dominate the threat. She wants the world to stop requiring domination just to get through a week. That is such an important difference. Because a lot of people confuse intensity with security. They think, he would kill for me is the same as I am safe with him. Not even close. A person can be willing to burn the world down and still be incapable of building peace. Vincent is living proof of that. That is the third lesson. Being fiercely loved is not the same thing as being safely loved. And Lily, to the story's credit, understands this before Vincent does. She has already paid the price of mistaking possession for protection once in her life. She is not interested in repeating it with a prettier man in better suits. So she makes the hardest possible demand: change the pattern, not the symptoms, not the optics, the pattern. Then the Michael and Sophie situation arrives and the entire story levels up, because now it is not just about romantic danger. Now it is about whether Vincent's power can be used ethically or whether it will always default to domination. He could pay off the debt. He could crush Dimitri. Done. Quick, dirty, efficient. But Lily refuses the shortcut. She wants the predator stopped for everybody, not just neutralized for their circle. That is where she stops being the girlfriend and becomes the story's moral engine. She is asking the man she loves to become inconvenient to himself, to betray his own training, to care beyond personal possession, to do the right thing even when the wrong thing would be easier, cleaner, and more familiar. And that is the fourth lesson. Real love is not measured by how much someone feels. It is measured by what they are willing to become because of what they feel. Now let us talk about the police and the family, because this is where the script gets especially cruel. Lily gets the chance to save herself by betraying Vincent. Vincent gets pressure from the criminal family that raised him. Everybody suddenly starts talking about loyalty, survival, sacrifice, and smart choices. But here's the ugly truth. Every institution in this story wants something from them. The police want testimony. The family wants containment. The rivals want leverage. The streets want obedience. And in the middle of all that, Lily and Vincent are trying to protect something human. That is why this story feels so suffocating. Love is never allowed to exist in isolation. Every system around them tries to convert it into utility. And Vincent learns the oldest lesson in the book the hard way. Systems built on fear do not love their soldiers. They merely delay discarding them. The so-called family cuts him off the moment the legal risk becomes too expensive. Of course they do. Men who were celebrated for loyalty are always shocked when loyalty turns out to be a one-way street. Vincent thought he belonged. What he actually had was conditional value. There is a difference, and realizing it is usually devastating. Meanwhile, Lily has to face an equally brutal truth. Loving Vincent means there will never be a fully clean version of this story. No matter what happens, she is attached to consequence now. There is no magical exit where she keeps the feelings but loses the risk. That is adulthood in one sentence right there. The fifth lesson, then, is maybe the hardest. Sometimes the real choice in life is not between pain and peace. It is between two different kinds of pain and deciding which one you can live with and still recognize yourself. By the end, what makes the story satisfying is not that everything becomes perfect. It is that both of them stop lying about what love requires. Vincent stops pretending control is enough. Lily stops pretending survival is enough. He gives up the system that made him powerful. She gives up the version of herself that believed safety meant staying emotionally half alive. They both lose their old methods of winning. And that is exactly why they finally start building something real. Coffee in the morning sounds small until someone remembers he used to solve problems with fear. Checking the locks together sounds small until someone remembers she once checked them alone because terror was the only thing sleeping beside her. A legitimate business sounds small until someone remembers the empire he had to walk away from. A garden sounds small until someone remembers the ground they came from. So no, the saddest part of this story is not the threats, not the criminal life, not even the courtroom. The saddest part is that two people had to be damaged this badly before they could recognize what love was supposed to feel like. And the most beautiful part? They did not let that damage have the final word. That is why this story works, not because it says love conquers all. That is childish. It works because it says something harder, something truer. Love becomes real the moment two people stop using their old survival habits as substitutes for intimacy. She stopped hiding as her whole identity. He stopped controlling as his whole identity. And together, they proved that the most radical thing two broken people can do is not die for each other. It is learn how to live.